Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So I was just kind of looking for something to read and tripped over this, and this is actually a book that I've only just read for the first time. Um, and it's part of a trilogy. Looks like it might be part of a bigger series. I haven't really been looking around at a lot of things anyway, so this depending on who finds this, maybe you already know about this, Melissa McShane. Anyways, so this series fits all of my, usual reading preferences. A female protagonist because boys are stinky and have cooties. Um, a fantasy novel, and probably aimed at the slightly younger set, because I am a shallow person. Um, So, this particular trilogy is set in an intriguing universe where, um, apparently the people who can actually do magic, who once they get trained to be able to do magic are called ascendants, at least in the country of Tremontaine, which is not where the bulk of these books are set. Um, I would say the bulk of this book, Pretender to the Crown, is the bulk of this book is set in Tremontaine, but it's sort of in Tremontaine traveling to the next door neighbor country. Um, and so the thing about that, about this Escandel, which is the next door neighbor country that they're heading to. Um, I mean, there's a certain East versus West character to this, as there usually is in so many of these books. Escandel is a Middle Easterny, deserty country, and Tremontaine is a Europeanish country. Um, but the thing is that this is the story, this first book, because as I said, it's trilogy. Um, it's a thief who winds up in sort of a prologue introduction falling in love with um, a dowser. Now, what I was saying about the people who can do magic is that they don't have big magical batteries, so to speak. They need dowsers. That is, people who don't have the ability to do anything with magic themselves, per se. What they can do is collect magic and feed it to someone or something else. So that in order to do effective, large-scale magical works, you need both an ascendant, that is a trained potential magic user, and a dowser, that is a person who can collect magic. So, um, it's one of those unfortunate things, though, that of course, as often happens, the ones with the power, that is the ascendants, the ones with the ability to blow stuff up or mind control people or whatever superpowers they have, which, by the way, it's a very, very specific magical power. Um, this isn't like the gift in, say, the Song of the Lioness series. Um, it's not one of those magical abilities where you can do a whole bunch of things. It's not like Harry Potter. What it is you have a single magical kind of talent, so it's sort of like X-Men superpowers. Um, you'll be able to control people, or you'll be able to manipulate the body to heal people or kill people. You'll be able to cause earthquakes, or that kind of thing. Um, but you can't do stuff sort of far outside of it. So I would assume that this is one of those things where you can get trained to use your power and fine tune it and get super creative about how you use it to make all kinds of exciting things happen. our lead character has the potential to become a so-called ascendant and turned it down because she sees how arrogant and how horrible most ascendants become and doesn't want to become like that, clearly firmly believing that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We all know that old saw. She is a thief by trade and training and preference, and she loves thievery, not in one of those fictional ways. It's not so much the stealing that she loves as the act of putting one over somebody, of the act of breaking into somewhere and not getting caught. She loves roof running. She loves the excitement of it. That it's not so much that she loves and is good at getting a hold of large amounts of money. It's that she loves and is good at the actions that comprise thievery. And it's a very strong line that you have to draw there, because it's what allows her to be a very honorable person and choose to give up those sorts of things, because she doesn't love it for greedy reasons. She loves it for, personal thrilling reasons. Anyway, she falls in love with this dowser, but unfortunately, at that stage in the relationship, which is something that comes out over the course of the next 3 books, their relationship fell apart. She didn't want to give up stealing, and he didn't want to give up dowsing, and he was working for he decided to work for one of the ascendants, and she couldn't take that because she violently hated the ascendants and all of the abuses that they put everyone through. And he hated the fact that she was a thief, because in Tremontaine, if a thief is caught, then their hand gets chopped off, thus publicly branding them a thief and meaning that they can never make a living anywhere ever again. So they wound up off screen, in effect, having a big blowout, and years later, Karish comes to her carrying, and this is where the crown comes into it, the crown prince. The 8-year-old crown prince, whose uncle has just pulled off a very bloody coup and murdered the proper king, and even though it is illegal for an ascendant, that is, a person with magical powers, to hold the throne, one assumes because the law is there so that you don't have too much power concentrated in one place. Unfortunately, he's basically probably going to set out to kill the heir of Tremontaine, and Karish, not knowing who else to go to, has brought this little boy, Felix, to Willow. Hence the saga of Willow North, because this is about Willow North and her adventures, first getting the crown prince out and getting him to Eskandel, that neighboring country that Karish, her erstwhile true love, is actually from. Now, he's from a noble family, such as they are described in Eskandel, and so after a great many adventures, most of the way through the book is when you finally safely arrive in Eskandel. But safe is relative, because, of course, the problem is that they're still going to be faced with what to do, because Felix's uncle has still taken over. He has still named himself king, and they are now in a neighboring country, and you can't just order around a sovereign nation next door to do things. That's not how international politics works. The end of this book basically leaves off with them about to try to convince the Eskandelic people, who they're about to have a kind of a vote over who's going to be in charge of their country for the next year or so. They have a weirdly semi-democratic system, wherein there are a bunch of powerful families, and those powerful families every single year get together and vote on who's going to actually be in charge of things and making the final decisions for the year. And then they get back together in another year and have another vote, and the next one takes over. The thing is that they're just about coming up on the vote, and Karish's family is prominently in the running to take over. And so, in theory, if they take over, then they can get a question put to the people that will allow them to say, yes, we will support this prince in taking back his throne. But the bulk of this book is just them trying to get to Escondel. And so there's a lot of being on the road. There's a lot of the young prince. Now, he's not a particularly spoiled child, and we're not dealing with the young prince doesn't know what's going on, or, doesn't understand how the ordinary people live or any of that sort of shtick. What you're dealing with instead is a boy who's been fairly deprived of affection throughout his childhood, and Willow winds up stepping into the role of his mother despite it being something that she never particularly wanted to be, that is, a mother. She was never interested in children, she was never interested in having children, and she basically gets thrust into being his mother, and by the end of this book already cares very, very deeply for him in a very parental way, and he's clearly latched onto her because she's told him the truth, because she snuggles him at night, because she gives him candy but scolds him when he's, not doing well, is trying to give him lessons about how to be a good person, all those things that parents are supposed to do. And she spends a lot of this book just feeling not necessarily out of her depth, but a little bit desperate. The out of her depth doesn't kick in actually until the second and third books, because the bulk of this is just getting them out of the country, is being sneaky, is being clever, is being very, very bold in that act like you belong here and people won't question it sort of thing. One of those traditional secrets to not getting caught is the act like you're part of whatever's going on here, act like you know what you're doing and where you're going, and people are unlikely to notice you or question you. I don't know how true that is, but it's a truism in fiction anyways. And so there's a lot in this, there's a lot of doing that kind of brazen, just bull right past everybody going on in this. The one thing that comes up a lot in this book is her perception of the world, which is colored by the fact that she has magical potential. It is, by the way, magical potential that is genuinely never realized. This isn't one of those things where she winds up becoming the sorcerer supreme of any sort. It's more that her magical power is such that she is extremely sensitive to metal, in that if she, for example, touches iron, it is blisteringly cold, whereas gold is blisteringly hot, and she always knows how much metal a person has on them and where they are. And it's part of what makes her such a successful thief, is that because she can feel metal, it means that she can sense when a person is approaching if they have any metal on them, whether it is a weapon or jewelry or anything else. So it's something that she has found tremendously useful, because it means that she always knows, for example, where the guards are, because she knows where their swords are. So it's an interesting universe. It's an interesting universe because this concept of family bonds, which doesn't get a lot of discussion in this series, is nonetheless an intriguing one. Because you have these cultural contrasts that are not merely cultural, but are national magic based. It's very, very, it's difficult to describe, but it's a little bit like physiologically based cultural differences, like the fact that Klingons tend to hit each other very hard, but that's because they can survive it. And I have about 15 seconds left, so this was interesting and new, and I have the rest of the trilogy to go through, and I will see you all next week.